Thank you, Andrew. And thank you all the guests for being here this evening. Welcome to the series, The Past is Present, New Montagnard Artists. My name is Foon, today's host. Our hour-long presentation is a book reading entitled Bilingual Storytime and Writing the Montagnard American Experience, in which we will have a bilingual English and Jedi story time, which will be suitable for both children and adults. We'll chat with the author and the translator afterward. The project is made possible by funding provided from Creative Greensboro, the Office of Arts and Culture of the City of Greensboro, through a Creative Catalyzing Grant. Shout out to the Montagnard Association and its youth branch, Montagnard American Organization, for applying for the grant. Please check out the chat section for links to our Facebook page and the author's info. This evening's program will be structured like a book reading that will then be followed by a Q&A. At 6:15 or so, we'll break for audience questions. You can use the chat feature to ask questions or make comments. We will also invite you to have questions. We will also invite you to ask questions live on camera later as well. So now that I've done this introduction, I would like to kind of move over to the guests themselves to do introductions. And we'll start off with Abby.
Hey everyone, my name is Abby. I am originally from Greensboro, North Carolina. I recently graduated from UNC Chapel Hill last year. Those are my cousins in the little square, and they're laughing, so I'm laughing too. Hi, how are you? I graduated with a degree in education, and I'm currently working at nonprofit in Philadelphia. I'm also the writer of the book that we're about to read, so that's fun.
Should I go next?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ha Tong, and I am the community liaison at the Montagnard Association, and I am the translator for this book. Nice to meet you all. Hi, kids. We're excited to see you guys, but we have a little activity later for you guys.
Thank you, Ha and Abby. I'm going to go ahead and let them get on with their show. So I'll turn it over to you all for the icebreaker and the story time.
Great. So right before we start reading, we are going to be reading in both English and Jurai. Ha and I wanted to do a little activity with you all. So the book that we're reading is called Yat's Backyard Jungle, and Yat is grandma in Jurai. And in the book, the young girl gardens and creates a meal with her grandmother. So we want to ask you all if you are familiar with these vegetables and if you've seen them before. So can anyone share, either unmuting yourself or typing in the chat, what this vegetable is?
You can share it in English, and if you know the name in Jurai or in your ethnic language, you are welcome to share in Rede or your ethnic language. I see someone said long beans, green beans.
Right, they are long beans. Okay, does this look familiar to anyone?
Let's ask them if they know the name in Jurai or in Rede. Kids, do you guys know the name in your language? No? Do you want to ask your mom or your dad? No. What about other folks? Maybe food?
I'm so ashamed that I don't know what the word is in Banong.
Anyone? It's called Ratak in Jurai. Liana, how do you guys say long beans in Rede?
Itak, we just say itak.
Itak? Okay, we can go to the next one.
Okay.
Next, everybody's favorite. Small pumpkins.
This looks like a smash pumpkin.
Eggplants.
Okay.
It's Thai eggplants. Yes. What about the name in Montagnard languages?
In Benang, we say plin.
Lin,
In Rade, it's trong.
Trong. Same with Jarai, we said Krong.
Hopefully this is an easier
Ooh,
one.
this should be familiar with a lot of people here. And if you're Montagnard, definitely. This should be your favorite. Peppers.
Yeah.
Yes. How do you say pepper in Montagnard? I want to hear from the little kids. No, do you want to ask your mom? I'm sure you do know. Maybe you're just shy. Andrew, what is this? In July already.
You're asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you because you always talk about plants and veggies.
In July, I don't know. In Banar, I don't know. In English, I know what this is.
We call it hang
I can
in
I don't know
July.
what it is.
Amrek, we call it amrek. Hang is like spicy, but amrek is the word for it in Rade. But hang is
Yeah.
is spicy.
Yeah, the spiciness would be hang without the accent mark. So it would be hang. Hang is hang. What about Bunong, Foon?
We say mrai as well.
Right, as well. That's right. Yeah, my husband actually mentioned that. Yes, right. So cute.
Trong sam.
Trong Sam.
But the small one, the tiny one, we call it drong drun.
Oh, we don't have a different word for a smaller for cherry tomato, so we just call them tomatoes. In July, would just be Trong Sam. We have one last one. Yes.
Yeah, this is the last one.
You can say the name in English too. Mint. Yes, that is mint.
We just say hla bao,
Là bao.
which mean like stinky leaves.
Or it could be là bầu người.
Uh-huh.
Leaves
Or,
that are very with good smell.
Yeah, rau too.
Yeah, we say là hung.
Cool. Well, that was the last vegetable slash herb. And so I want you to kind of keep an eye out for when you see them in the book that we're about to read. So let me know if you can't see my screen. It's going to be a little tricky because I'll be switching from English to Jirai. I'll be reading in English and Ha will be reading in Jirai. Okay. Yes, backyard jungle. That is my grandma. She shows her love for me and my sister in many ways.
Dạ chuyên po ta kênh rai cặp mỹ cầu. Dạ bờ đắt lấy khắp nhiều cơ cầu hàng ở đây đắt cơ mê cầu mang luôn mà ta lấy.
Since mom and dad work a lot, Yat takes care of us when they're not home.
Cô yo đắt mỹ hàng mà cầu mà bọ lu bia mạ. Dạ vài lần bị cơ bê bơi mông mỹ mà cầu bù tọ bà sang ô.
She wakes us up every morning and tucks us in every night.
Như rau bờ tư biên cơ mê rìm mực quá lẽ nun xăm bê cơ biên cơ mê khăn rìm làm.
She braids our hair and cooks our meals.
You mon book bingkamay leh nan pakra manang bonghwa ka bingkamay.
Every day after school, me and my sister come home to Yat cooking. Her food makes each room in the house smell delicious.
Rim hray kyong ka sanghra kau hang ade dah kamay kau klai pasang leh nan bong manang yak kau mo pakra pre. Manang bonghwa nyu pakra nga rim ani lam sang kamay bong mangui piama.
She knows all my favorite foods: broccoli, morning glory, and eggplant. We eat every meal with jasmine rice.
Nyu thau kran bih bang manang bong kau khap. Nhâm bơi manga, nhâm pon, leh nun krong, bing kamay bong hwa rim hray hang say tana mong bright jasmine.
At the dinner table, Yat tells us stories about growing up in Vietnam. When she was my age, she used to live on a farm in the jungle. She even had pigs and chickens in her backyard.
Tadang kamay dok bong hwa, ya ra roy ka kamay talay ra roy ka talay tip nyu po tadang nyu dok pa Vietnam. Lak nyu dok thun kau ra nai, nyu dok bay war mang klay klo, nyu mau bupui hang manu lam war nyu.
At school, my friends tell me they visit their grandparents on weekends. You don't live with your grandparents? I ask. I can't imagine home without my Yat and Oi.
Pơ sang khra bing kiyut kau lại bing kinyu na chọn ngui ay ya nyu lam hray tui lam hray kam. Ibu to ram hang ay ya i o, kau nhà. Kau bu thao min him pa sang anak kemay chi ching tatah kemay bu mo ya hang ay o.
But then one day, Mom and Dad say they bought my grandparents a new house just for them. I don't understand why they can't live with us.
Sama hra sa hray, ami hang ma lại bing kinyu mo play ka ay ya sa po sang prao. Kau bu thao lu o ya haket bing kinyu bu tui to ram pit hang bing kemay o.
Winter comes and Yat and Oi move. Without Yat, my sister and I get ready in the morning ourselves. I braid my sister's hair the way Yat used to.
Pian pui tru ya hang ay nào pa sang prao. Bu mo ay ya do ram ade dah kamay kau hang kau tu ku kamay po lam kwa. Kau mon buk ade kau rup hang ya kau mo nga.
After a while, my sister and I visit Yat and Oi's new house for the first time. We used to see them every day, but now we only see them on the weekends.
Sui bia ade dah kamay kau hang kau na chọn ngui sang prao ay hang ya tal blung. Lo dum kamay bu bing kinyo rim hray. Sama ra nai kamay kanong bu bing kinyo lam hray tui lam hray kam doj.
Their new house has a big, empty backyard. There will be no kids to play in it. What if they feel lonely?
Sang pro bing kinyu mo sa boh war prong leh nun hong hang. Bu mo bing chadai to ngui ngor mang nun o. Hiam chi nga tatah bing kinyu rengot haning jan pan.
Every time my sister and I visit, Yat cooks for us. In the winter, she likes to cook bung riot to warm us all up.
Rim vat ade dah kamay kau hang kau na chok ngui. Ya pakra manang bong hwa bre ka bing kamay. Lam bian pui yu khap pakra bun rio kyang padao dre jan bing kamay.
Yat doesn't like the winter. Warm weather and sunshine remind her of Vietnam. Eating bung riot reminds her of Vietnam too.
Ya bu khap o bian pui. Bian ya leh nun yang hray kyang pahatar nyu ka Vietnam. Bong bun rio pahatar nyu ka Vietnam man.
When spring arrives and flowers bloom, Yat and Oi start digging holes in their backyard. I ask them if they're digging for buried treasure. We'll see the treasure in summer, Yat tells me.
Pian banga tru leh nun banga blang. Ya hang ay kachum klay lung lam var sang bing kinyu. Kau tanya bing kinyu tadah bing kinyu klay lung kyang patap gram kanam yom ha. Bing tai chi boh gram kanam yom nun lam pian pang. Ya like ka ko.
With each visit, there's something new to see in their backyard. There are small sprouts growing from the ground where Yat and I dug holes. They've been planting all sorts of things.
Rem vợt cơ mây nào chọn ngui, cơ mây bút mân ông prao làm var sang bình kinh nhu. Bình cơ mây bút cơ yao mà ta ru đi mong lần ấy dạ màu clay lung. Bình kinh nhu màu pla lu mà ta cơ yao pra pra.
Summer finally comes, which means we'll get to see our grandparents more. On the first day of summer vacation, Yat and I show us a surprise in their backyard.
Pian phang chút lẽ nên bình cơ mây tùy bập ấy dạ cơ mây lu vật yớ. Làm rê tal blung cơ tà lê bờ tùy pian phang. Dạ hằng ấy pha cơ bình cơ mây sa mà ta tà lê cơ tọa làm var sang bình kinh nhu.
Wow, the backyard isn't empty anymore. It's a garden full of life.
Wow, war sang bình kinh nhu bu jing hong hang tong ta. Jing hi sa boh war bo hang tà lê tip lê rạ này.
Yat's garden is like a backyard jungle. There are rows of tall corn stalks where my sister and I play hide and seek. There are teeny tiny peppers and skinny long beans too.
Var sang dạ rúp hàng clay clo đôi. Mau cơ nong phun tờ. Anh ấy câu hàng ở tê đạc mây câu ngùi bật tập hàng hạt toa. Lẽ nên màu mình bo hàng anh lẽ nên rơ ta clong.
I find smooth eggplants and bumpy squash. My sister shows me cherry tomatoes, basil, and mint leaves that smell tasty.
Cậu bu bo krong hàng bo tol. Ở tê đạc mây câu bo tô câu bo krong sam net. La ít lẽ nên la hung bo hiam bia mạ.
And when Yat isn't looking, I pick tomatoes from the vines to eat. My sister and I try the peppers, but they're too spicy for us.
Tờ đá dạ bu lăng ố, câu bẹ băng bo krong sam băng phun krong sam. Ở đây đắc mê câu hàng câu băng long lăng bo hàng, sơ mơ bình kinh nhô ta hàng đây cả bình mây.
Yat tells us to gather long beans, peppers, tomatoes, and mint. Together, we'll make long bean salad, my favorite.
Dạ bre cơ mê bẹ rơ ta klong, bo hàng, bo krong sam, lẹ nên la hung, ram bít, bình cơ mê chi ngạ rơ ta tul, menong băng câu khắp bia mạ.
She puts garlic into her mortar and pestle and smashes, smashes, smashes. She adds in peppers, mint, tomatoes, and long beans, and then she lets me smash, smash, smash.
Dù béo toi làm sung lẹ nên tul. Lẽ nên nhiều béo bo hàng, la hung, bo krong sam, lẽ nên rơ ta klong, nhiều bre câu tul.
Next, Yat adds a splash of fish sauce and a pinch of sugar. Together, we smash, smash, smash.
Tọ túi dạ béo xa wak ia mam lẽ nên xích, ram bít cơ mê tul.
Even though she lives far away, I still feel close to my grandma, especially when she cooks for us. Her food always brings the whole family together. No matter where we are, she makes us feel at home.
Vật đá như đọ tai mừng bình cơ mấy, câu đọ hà nâng bà mình câu đọ dễ giam dạ câu đôi. Tờ lời bà mình nên cả tàng lo đâng, tờ đá như bà kra menong bông họa cả bình cơ mấy. Menong bông họa như bà kra dư bí sang anh họ cơ mấy đọ dễ hàm bít. Tờ đàng bình cơ mấy đọ anh đi pra như dư bình cơ mấy bà mình cơ mấy đọ rụp bà pla cơ mấy đôi.
Cool. And that's the end of the story. Does anyone want to?
Someone summarize the story for us? Did you guys enjoy the story? Does anyone want to tell us what happened in the story?
You want to tell us, Sophia? What did you think, Sophia?
your best.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Does your yet have a garden, Sophia?
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Noah?
Does your yacht plant all of those veggies in her backyard too?
Yes.
What kind of veggies? Can you tell us again?
Salad.
And what else?
Tomato.
Mm-hmm.
And meat.
They grow meat?
Yeah.
Maybe not. What-
See it. You grow pepper.
Yeah.
Peppers, yes. See, you gotta listen.
Can I ask another question? Is that okay, Abby and Ha?
Yes.
Do y'all remember when we were doing the icebreaker earlier with the different vegetables? Did you remember which vegetables came up in the story? Anyone remember? No?
No.
You named some of them.
Yeah. Do you remember what yeah made at the end with the long bean salad? What were the ingredients? Do you remember?
Tomato.
Mhm.
Tomatoes, yes.
What else? Yeah, go ahead. Anna, I think. You're muted. I don't know if you're trying to speak, but you're muted. Oh, there you go. Oh, we still can't hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yes, yes. We can
Yes.
Go
hear you.
ahead, say it louder.
Eggplant.
Uh-huh.
Yes, eggplants. What else?
Long beans.
Long beans, yes. Two more. So we have tomatoes, eggplant, long beans, and what else? Something that is very spicy.
Peppers.
Yes, peppers. The last ingredient. This smell really good.
Mint.
Mhm.
Mint, yes. Good job, you guys are awesome. See, you listened really, really well to the story. Thank you.
Great. So I think that if any little ones want to hop off, then you can feel free to do so. And anyone who wants to listen to the Q&A, the question and answer, feel free to stay on. But thank you so much for listening. It's good to see my little cousins again. Hi, Sophia and Noah. Don't look so sad when you're on Zoom.
And if the little ones also have any questions for the author, you can ask her now. No questions? Sophie, Noah, Sophia? Anna, do you have any questions? No questions? Cool. Is there anything you want to say? Anything else you want to say? Okay. Because now we're going to start with some other questions. And they might be a little different from the questions we just asked, but it will still be very good for you to listen in if you want to. Okay, cool. So, bye. All right, wonderful. So thank you to Abby and Ha for doing the reading together. Thank you, Abby, for writing this book, creating this story, giving it life, and to Ha for translating the words. And how much of this experience, the story, how much of the story is drawn from your personal experience, Abby?
Yeah, so it's definitely like loosely based, because I do have a pretty strong relationship with my grandparents. I did live with them for most of my life, well, until I moved for college. And they did recently move into their own house. It is pretty common for a lot of Montagnards to live with their grandparents, or for adults to live with their parents. So that, yeah, definitely was the case for me. And when my grandparents moved into their new house, they had a lot of land in their backyard, not as much, more land than they had at their previous house. So yeah, they used a lot of that for gardening. So it's really, yeah, just magnificent what they were able to do in their garden. And they also have chickens. And I was just home actually in Greensboro last week, and I was watching as they're getting ready and planting, and that's kind of where that story comes from.
Mm. And was there like a particular moment when you were reflecting on this, like that kind of came together where you wanted to focus on this experience of your yacht's backyard jungle?
Yeah, so I like had seen this opportunity through the organization Room to Read to write and publish a book in 4 weeks. And so what we did was I applied with this idea in my mind. It was never until I like wrote the application, it wasn't ever like a fully formed idea. It was just like, oh, I think this is interesting. And a lot of Montagnards and a lot of Southeast Asians or immigrants as a whole, like maybe be able to relate to the fact that their parents or their grandparents have a garden with vegetables that are um, that they eat a lot of. And so that's how, like, I kind of had the idea has kind of formed through that. And I thought through gardening and through food, it would be a way for kids to kind of read about a family that may look like them or that they may be able to relate to. And it's also, yeah, just very great and very like well illustrated to be able to see all these vegetables and foods in a um, cartoon book.
Yeah, I noticed there were so many different elements that were related to like my experience growing up. If it wasn't like the grandma and grandpa or just like kind of the growing up in an intergenerational household, it was the food and that experience of like a garden that my mom had. So I think that there were so many places where I felt like I had visibility. And that's a really special experience when, you know, we didn't grow up that way, when there wasn't a lot of media, books, TV that did represent that experience. This question goes for both you and Ha. So in Ya's backyard jungle, the grandma shares stories to the two young characters. What kind of stories did your grandparents tell you when you were younger? Doesn't necessarily have to be a grandparent, but somebody in your life, caretaker, caregiver. And what kind of stories do you hope to tell? We can start with Abby and then go to Ha.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely heard some stories about my parents and my grandparents in Vietnam. Never really in depth, but um, every now and then there would be anecdotes about what my mother would do for work when she was younger, or also what my grandparents would do, or what their families were like. And yeah, I definitely wish I heard more stories growing up. And I feel like now I ask, I kind of have to ask to receive those stories. And it's kind of funny how many secrets I've learned in the last few years just by having these conversations, things I just didn't know when I was younger. And as far as stories that I hope to tell, yeah, to any young people in my life, I try to um, kind of, yeah, bring up memories that I have that are happy memories. If I ever have kids, I would very much like to tell them how my life was when I was a kid and how my life is right now, as I'm sure it will drastically change in the next 10 to 20 years. So I would definitely love to, I definitely want to keep storytelling alive in my family.
Reading Abby's stories, like reading my own story too. My grandma, I grew up in Vietnam, and my grandma's house was in the center, and she had a lot of grandchildren and great grandchildren. So we were all at her house, especially on the weekend. We kind of like scatter around her house. And so her house like the center of my family. We have a really big family in Vietnam. And same thing with your grandma, Abby. And my grandma would cook. She loved to cook, and the kitchen would definitely be her place. Like nobody should come over there and mess with it. That's her spot. That's it. And she'll make food for us, and she'll make snack and stuff like that. And so definitely, you know, when I read your story, Abby, it remind me of my grandma in her backyard. She also had a very big backyard. She passed away at the end of last year. And my grandparents were very great people. They sacrificed their life a lot for their kids, their grandkids, and even, you know, just people from the community. And the story that I would like to tell my children later on, that, you know, my grandmas were great people, and I would love to be that kind of people too. And I would love for my children to be great, just like my grandparents.
Thank you both for sharing. And just a reminder to some of the audience members, we'll be doing a further question answer with them, and y'all are more than welcome to send questions through the chat, or we'll give you an opportunity to unmute your mic later on. The next question I have for you, Abby, is that I know you live in Philly right now, but in what ways do you try to keep your family, especially your grandma's essence, kind of close to you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely when I moved for college to, even though Chapel Hill is not too far, I was missing my family and missing especially the food. And I think that's again part of the story, is that even though there's distance, like whenever we come together, there's always some kind of meal. And like I said, I went home to Greensboro this past week. And as soon as I got home, like my mom had pho ready on the on the stove, like, and that's just how it's been for the last couple of years since I've been back and forth going home. And now that I'm even farther away, I still try to recreate some of the food that my grandma cooked. And I'm lucky to live in Philly, where there are a lot of Vietnamese and Lao and Cambodian communities here. So there are a lot of really good grocery stores and restaurants. So I can get like the vegetables, and I can try to recreate some of the meals. Never as good as she makes, but I can try. And I always like to FaceTime her or to take a picture and share it with her. And yeah, she's really nice about it. I know she's judging me inside because it doesn't look as good as how she makes it, but it's like, oh, you did a good job. So that definitely doing that helps.
Okay. So for a lot of us within the Montagnard community, there are very few written resources or written books. Most of them relate to the Bible or religion. Why was it important for you to have this book translated?
Yeah, like you said, like even as I was reading the book and I was listening to Ha translate and Jirai, I was like, man, has this ever happened before? Like, has there ever been a Zoom call where we're reading a book out loud in two different languages, and like not just two different languages, but in English and Jirai? Because I know that there is another children's book, but I think that one's translated in Renee and Kaha. And yeah, they're just, like you said, very, very few written media and written sources. So it felt really important. I know that Jirai is really like it's a lot of young people, a lot of people my age and younger, like my cousins that you just saw on the screen. Jirai just doesn't come as easily to some of us. So maybe having like it written would help learn the language and also help to see that yeah, this is a really special and important thing, that just the act of translating into Jirai and keeping the language alive. And
Mhm.
hopefully like if parents want to read to their kids, for example, this is a way that they can do that.
Mm. And for
Can I
you,
also answer to this question?
yes,
Um,
of
when Abigail reached out to me to find a translator, I was at first I took a look at the story, the book. I fell in love with it. It's very personal to me, and I definitely agree that it should be translated into Jirai and other Montagnard languages too. I was hesitant at first, to translate the story, but after we couldn't find a translator. But what motivated me was like Poon said in the beginning, we don't have a lot of written documents in Jirai or Manya languages. And so I wanted to make sure that children out there, especially kids that live in the United States, be able to have books that are in their mother tongues. And also parents out there have books that are in their mother tongue so that they could share the story in their mother tongues, Jirai, Rede, Bunong, Bernard, and just, have that bonding time together, not only to improve the relationship between parents and younger children, but also to keep the culture alive. And I've worked many years with the children ministry. And one of the things that I've seen within the Marnia household is definitely the gap between parents and children. And I believe communication is very, very important to keep the relationship strong. And so I wanted to make sure that we have something in mutual, something in the middle to help parents and kids, to share. So definitely reading something in our language would be very helpful.
Yeah, and like, allowing kids the opportunities to see themselves in these stories and to see themselves as main characters in these storybooks is incredibly important. And so, yeah, I guess that leads into my final question for the evening, but I can definitely keep going. I want to also provide an opportunity again for the audience members to be able to ask questions. But Abby, what is your hope for books like yours?
Yeah, I definitely want to see a lot more out there. And of all genres, whether it's children's or like middle school or young adult type of literature. I think there are so many stories and so many different experiences, and even like I would love to write like something fictional and like fantasy or science fiction, something kind of like out there, but have like a Montagnard protagonist or a family or something like that. Like it doesn't even have to be limited to things that are realistic. I think, yeah, I really want to hopefully see more people kind of stretch their imaginations and include Montagnards in their writing or their art or whatever it is that they do. Because again, there's just so much that can be done, and it just, yeah, I would love to see more representation.
Thank you so much, Abby. I think that having the little ones on the call today and knowing that, especially for your cousins, since they have such a personal relationship to you, knowing that you wrote this book and were able to create a story out of your experience is really inspiring. And I'm sure in a sense, like they see you as a hero or someone to look up to, a role model. But again, I want to provide this time for audience questions. Would any of the audience members like to unmute and potentially ask a question to Ha and Abby?
Yeah, I have a question. I applaud you both. That is just fantastic, and I love seeing it. It just did my heart so much good to see that of what you created. Abby, I just wonder. I had no idea this was written in such a short period of time because that's what I was my main question. So, what was your process? Like, what was? Can you just explain like where exactly this came from, and then once you put in this application, and then what happened afterwards? And then also follow-up question is what will happen to this book? What kind of format is it in? Can we get it in libraries around here? I mean, that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So I had seen, I follow this page on Facebook called We Need Diverse Books, and they're an organization and they have a lot of different, they post a lot of different opportunities and resources for people who are interested in writing or people who are just interested in reading diverse literature. And it just yeah, it just kind of happened. I applied on a whim to this opportunity. Again, the organization is called Room to Read, and their initiative was the Peace and Equality Collection. And so, as the mission or the motivation was to find writers and illustrators, editors and art directors that were interested in creating something that related to the theme of peace and equality. And I immediately was interested. I didn't have an idea until I started thinking about it some more. And so I had submitted I think the original title was like Grandma's Garden. And then I looked it up, and like Hillary and Chelsea Clinton already have a book called Grandma's Garden, which is kind of funny. And so I renamed it. But yeah, when I submitted it, the premise was pretty basic. I just shared that, what if there was a Montagnard American girl and she has a really strong relationship with her grandma, and her grandma moves away, and she visits her every now and then in the summer they see this really big garden and they make a meal together. And yeah, they selected that, and I was matched with a team of people. The illustrator is Jessie White, and she's really talented, and her art style just really meshed well with like the theme of the book, I think. And so yeah, in the 4 weeks, it went from being just like an idea to a draft, and then kept getting drafted by my editor, and yeah, and then it was created. And this all happened last fall, and it launched earlier this year. And there are also 9 other books in this collection that I highly recommend y'all also check out. They're all free to read on literacycloud.org. Right now, they just exist online, but in the next year, they will also be released as physical copies in English and hopefully other languages as well. Yeah, and as far as distribution, since the nonprofit, so Room to Read is a nonprofit, and their aim is to increase global literacy. So they're partnering with a bunch of organizations in the US and also around the world to distribute these books for free. They'll also be available for sale. And yeah, that's the extent of what I know as far as distribution, but all of that will happen, I think, next year.
Wonderful. Congratulations and fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Abby, did you know that Miss Handy, Miss Universe Vietnam 2018, she was the global ambassador for Room to Read?
Yeah. Yeah, Small World. Yeah, they're a great organization. And I had heard about them because of her, and because I think Michelle Obama had also worked with them. And so yeah, I've heard of them, but I didn't know about this opportunity until I saw it on Facebook.
For people that don't know, Miss Universe Vietnam 2018, she is from Rede tribe, so she is Montagnard.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to echo what Catherine said and just say thank you so much to Abby and Ha for sharing the story with us today, and also sharing how your personal experiences intertwine with the story. I apologize, I had my video off for most of the session, but I was here and listening, just didn't want to interfere with what you all were doing. But I work at Reading Connections, and I direct the family literacy program there, and have worked with Liana a lot, and would love to share this story with the families in our program, both Montagnard families as well as families from other cultures and backgrounds, because I think it's so relatable, of course, to folks in the Montagnard culture, but I think to many families, especially immigrant and refugee families. So I would love to talk with you more about how we can, get this book out there and share it with more families in our program. So thank you so much for doing this today.
Yeah, thank you for joining.
I really love the artwork I was going to ask that who did it, but you already answered that earlier. But so for those people who want to know when they can get the physical copy, because like for me, I like to like actually have it and read it to the kids and point out the words, because I just don't like looking at a tablet or computer screen reading. So I'm just one of those old-fashioned people. So when can we expect an actual copy, and how or where we can order them?
Yeah, I definitely can provide more details in the next couple of months when I find out. I was told that, yeah, it'll be, yeah, probably, I don't even know around when next year that they will be available, but I can definitely let folks know and post it on my social media and share it with, and, share it with other people personally. But I most likely, I can share the website, the organization's website, which is roomtoread.org. And I'm sure if you follow them as well, they'll announce it too. And they have like a Facebook and an Instagram and all that good stuff. So
Abby, as a follow-up to that, like I loved how it went from yours to Haas to yours to Haas. Like, is the idea to publish it in a hard copy just on the English, or to have it like, I would love to see it, actually maybe like the translation on the same page. Is there talk about doing that, or is it just going to be in English? Because it would be wonderful. Because now I know that tool means smash, smash, smash. And even Anna was like, tool. Look, you're getting it.
yeah, I think as far as I know, I think the translations will be separate, on separate copies. I can, however, see what they're thinking, as far as the publishers, what they're thinking about keeping the translations in one. But as far as I know, it is going to be 2 copies.
I have a follow-up question for Abby or Ha. Will we expecting some more children's book in the future?
From the author, I'm sure Abby would have other books later on, but from my end, I'm working on the rest of the collection that Abby books is in. So it's supposed to be 10 book, right? Including your books, Abby. I have already translated her book, so now the rest is 9 books, and I'm working on the rest of the books. So hopefully at the end of August, we'll have 9 books in July.
That sounds awesome. I can't wait. And definitely, like as a mom, I would we always we're told by our teacher or students, or our kids teacher, like at least read 20 minutes a night with your children. So definitely we want to encourage our parent to do the same now that we have it in like either Jirai, Rade, or Kahal that are available in some of these book out there. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to preserve our language as well.
Very good. I am taking over some of the host responsibilities from Fun, who's done a terrific job here. I'll ask some technical questions to both you, Abby, and Ha. I mean, I see we've got a little extra time here before 6:30 and the time runs out, but maybe some technical questions. First to you, Abby. Tell us how you wind up sitting down, and what do you actually do? You've got your idea, and we know it's influenced by your interactions with your family and stuff, but what do you actually do? Do you sit down with a pencil and paper and a cup of coffee? What do you do to start your story? Can you tell people a little bit about that process?
Yeah, I think it would definitely be different had this process been totally different. But like I said, it was a 4-week process. They call it a book sprint, because it is very much a sprint. And so I feel like I immediately went in trying to make sure, at least within the first draft, that I didn't have to make as many edits in the later drafts. or that the feedback would be that, very small or technical stuff as opposed to, oh, change the whole thing. So I tried to think like, and I've like, when I was a kid, I read a lot of books. So I was thinking about the ones that I liked the most and kind of what structure or what narrative they used and how to get from, simple, basic, beginning, middle, end, like how they teach in elementary school. So I did just get on my computer and open a Word document and start typing pretty much what first came to mind, and then reading it, and especially reading it out loud and hearing how things sound, and trying to, and I'm lucky to have young cousins, and trying to imagine them reading it and if they were even able to. So like thinking about age and reading levels, like it can't be too complicated. Yeah, so as soon as I kind of got the basic, like I knew that it was going to start introducing the characters and then have that conflict, which is the grandmother leaving, and then having the resolution, which is the, we're still a family, we can still get together, and I love my grandma because she makes us food kind of resolution. So yeah, everything was done very, very quickly. I think if under different circumstances, there might have, it definitely probably would look different, but that's kind of how I went about it this time.
And just a very quick follow-up question, because most of us have never written a book, whether it's for children or for anybody. Was it enjoyable? Was it fun? Was it stressful? Was it a headache? Can you say something about how you felt as you were writing this thing?
Yeah, I'm sure other people have different opinions, but it was definitely a lot of fun because it was such a collaborative experience. And what I was hearing from my team and from other people, some of whom, like I said, there are 10 books in the collection, including mine. And so there were 10 teams. And so we would meet sometimes, and other people were more experienced than I was. And they were saying, yeah, like I've never had such a collaborative writing experience or illustrating experience. I think traditionally it's more like the writer is here and the illustrator is here, and they're working independently and maybe sharing, like maybe swapping back and forth like the text and the illustrations. Whereas like in the team meetings, I was getting feedback from everyone and they were saying, I can change this or I can keep this. So it was fun in that way. And especially knowing that this kind of story doesn't quite exist yet. And it felt really motivating to just get it out there and to try to stay as true to what I've actually experienced myself. So yeah, I would definitely say it was fun.
So we have a question from Leanna, and Leanna, do you want to unmute and ask your question, please?
Yes. So for for those people who are out there, and to our listener, young people or adults, if they want to write short stories or get into this kind of program, how can they sign up, or what are their opportunity out there for, some of us are not really tech, we're not on the internet a lot, so we don't know who to reach out to and stuff like that. How can people get connected with other writer or publisher or anything like that?
Absolutely. I would, start. So the organization that I worked with is Room to Read, and their website is roomtoread.org, roomtoread.org. And through another source is how I found this opportunity. And I'd mentioned it before, but it's We Need Diverse Books, and the website is diversebooks.org. And if you go to that website, it will have this tab that says programs or get involved or opportunities or resources. And so you can take a look at that and see similar programs to the one that I did, or just maybe tips and advice on how to get started. And yeah, it's definitely not, I think I definitely got lucky. Definitely have a lot of privilege in just being able to find this opportunity and get accepted. It's definitely not the traditional route that a children's book writer typically takes. But I mean, you never know when you when you have an idea and you put it out there where it might end up, I really did not expect to have gotten, to this point. But yeah, I say definitely like don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I think whatever idea you have in your head can definitely be translated into a book or any physical product that you're thinking of. And even just looking up like how to write a children's book, there are, I feel like, a lot of ways now. And at least from when I was a kid and when I was like growing up, I think a lot of I was reading a lot of books that are like traditionally published, like but nowadays I've been seeing a lot of people kind of take matters into their own hands and write the book, find the creative team and fundraise to actually publish and print the book, which is not traditional, but it's a way to get there. But anyway, all of that is to say that there's a lot of different ways now, I feel, to if you're looking to write and publish a book, there's a way to get it out there. And sometimes your best friend is probably going to be Google, but I can also share my email if you are wanting to get in contact with me personally, and I'd be happy to have a conversation.
Terrific. To Ha, now we get into some pretty sticky questions about how do you start translating a book like this? And okay, I'm going to ask the naive question, and you know the complicated answer, but isn't it just going to a dictionary and looking up the English word for pepper and then finding the Jirai word or the Rade word, and you just do it, you go word by word and you just look them up and then you write them down? Isn't it that simple, or is it more complicated than that?
It's way more complicated than that. Thank you, Andrew, for the questions. I actually approach this project with two different ways or steps, you would say. So first of all, I just translated, whatever I could with my best knowledge and ability at that time. And I would make note of the words and phrases that I, couldn't figure out yet at that time. And yes, if you see my draft, it was very messy. And then the first thing I did was to, after translating the whole thing, I used available written documents as my resources, to look up for words or phrases that I couldn't figure out at that time. So definitely the Bible was very useful. If you read the Bible, you should know that, the Bible is in orders, the books and the chapter verses. And so I'm pretty familiar with whatever is in the Bible. So it was pretty fast for me to figure out like which chapter, which book, which verse talk about certain word or certain phrase, because the Montagnard languages have different slang and different regions also have different ways of saying things too. So I wanted to make sure I use something that most Jirai people would say that we'll have in common. And especially in my village, we literally break things apart, I would say. We shorten a lot of words that if we speak to another person from different village, they wouldn't understand us. So I have to use something that everybody else should be familiar of. And that would be, most of the word would be from the Bibles. And as of right now, we have different versions of the Jirai Bible too, and certain books also have English and Jirai at the same time. And you can also access those books on the internet too, which was very convenient for me. So I did that. Some of the example that I would use, for example, the word long beans. So my village will say that, but the correct words should be that. And I remember there is a part in the Bible in the story of prodigal son in Luke. Talk about that, mention this bean. So I hurry up, open, the Bible to that chapter, to that verse, and looked up. And if I don't remember, then I just search on Google for the chapter and for the verse. So that is about the vocabularies and phrases, right? And the second thing, if I, was not sure on certain thing, I would contact my parents and older people from my area, from the Jarai tribe, to make sure that I say it correctly. I would read out loud my translation to them, and they would tell me, they'll give me feedback. This makes sense or doesn't make sense, or oh, you should say it this way, or you should say it the other way. So it has been a very fun process for me, and also for the folks that I have been working with too. Of course, I've made mistakes here and there, but I also learned a lot through, my mistake through the whole process too. And then lastly, I had to keep up with Abby, in touch with Abby on the whole process of translating the story, because there are parts that I couldn't just translate literally to English because to Jarai, because it wouldn't make sense. For example, the first sentence, Abby started off as "Yeah, is my grandma," and so "Yeah" is already a word in Jarai, which means grandma. And so if I will translate my literal translation in Jarai, it would be "Grandma is my grandma." And so I asked her, "Hey Abby, is it okay if I could change it to "Yeah" is the one that gave birth to my mom," and so it would make sense. And another thing I asked for clarification from Abby was the word "sister." If you pay attention, she used a lot of the word "sister" in her book, but in Jarai we don't have a word for sister. We have words for older sister, younger sister. We don't have words for just sister. And so I had to make sure, Abby, did you mean your younger sister or your older sister? I wanted to make sure that, I keep what Abby intended for her books. So those were some of the examples.
This is I think both of you have given us wonderful insights about the challenges of creating a book from scratch, as well as the challenge of translating it and trying to translate it in a way that's true to the language. We are running out of time. We have around 15 seconds for you each if you want to say something in conclusion today so we don't just cut you off. Abby, do you have any quick things to say before we wrap up?
Thank you all for listening and for your questions. I'm happy to update folks on when I learn more about the printing and the distribution. And I can, I guess I'll say my email out loud if you are interested in contacting me.
Go ahead, quickly.
Okay, APIMLO11@gmail.com. So feel free if you have any more questions.
And we can also add that to this will go on to Facebook, so we can add that into the comment area there. Ha, can you say something in a few seconds before we wrap?
Yes, I would love to. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Abby, for this wonderful, wonderful book. I definitely fell in love with it. And your book definitely motivated me to do, more with my language skill, and maybe later on I could write a book myself too. And I do want to encourage everybody here to, step out of our comfort zone and maybe try on different things. Before I've never thought that I would, done a project that was so big like this. I consider this as very big, my first big project of translation. And so I would definitely encourage everybody else to try something new and, to push harder for your cultures and for your identity and stuff like that. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much. We're signing off. We were talking to author Abby Malo and translator Ha Tong. We are part of the Past is Present project, New Montagnard Artists. You can find more information online all about this. With that, I'll wrap up. Thanks so much and good night.